I woke to find a pair of eyes inches from my own, cold, hollow, and devoid of any life. My body lay rigid beneath the sheets, my heart pounding as I realized I couldn't move or cry out. In that suffocating moment, I knew I was utterly alone, but something inhuman was watching me. Rain pounded against the window pane, each drop echoing like a drumbeat in the silent room. I had crawled into bed exhausted after a 12-hour shift, surrendering to sleep as the clock struck 2:47 a.m. Then came the jolt. My eyes snapped open, but my limbs refused to respond. A weight pressed down on my chest, crushing my breath into shallow gasps. The room, lit only by the faint glow of a street lamp outside, was an aquarium of shadows. A shape crouched at the foot of my bed, its limbs impossibly long and skeletal. Its fingers curled into razor-like claws that scraped the mattress springs. I willed myself to shout, to scream, but no sound emerged. My voice was swallowed by the darkness. The thing inched forward, its movement liquid and silent, as though it slid on air. My skin crawled as it hovered above me, a silhouette flickering like a candle flame in a breeze. Its eyes locked onto mine, coal-black orbs that burned with malignant curiosity. I felt its gaze pry open the corners of my mind, probing memories and fears I had buried long ago. Time stretched, each second dissolving into years. I was a prisoner in my own body, pinned by an invisible force more powerful than any muscle. Then came a breath, slow, deliberate, right at my ear. A cold whisper brushed my cheek, so faint I could not discern words, only the promise of something unholy. My heart threatened to burst free from my ribcage. Desperate, I focused on the tip of my right pinky. I willed it to twitch, to move anything. A single nerve sparked. My fingertip trembled. Encouraged, I summoned every ounce of will. The finger flexed, then the entire hand. The creature recoiled with a hiss like wind through dead leaves. My lungs burned as I drew in jagged breaths. With trembling arms, I slammed my hands into the mattress, rolled sideways, and lunged for the lamp. Light exploded through the room, obliterating every shadow. The thing vanished, leaving only the steady hum of the bulb and the pounding of my own pulse. I collapsed back against the headboard, drenched in sweat, the sheets twisted around my legs. Rain still drummed the window, ordinary once more. I stared at my shaking hands, marveling at the trickle of relief coursing through me. Yet I could not shake the feeling that those emptiness-filled eyes had followed me into the mundane glow of morning. For days afterward, I scoured online forums for explanations. Sleep paralysis, they said, a harmless neurological glitch when REM atonia persists into wakefulness. Hallucinations born of hypnagogia. Science insisted there was no monster beyond the thin barrier of consciousness. But none could describe the weight, the unnatural grace, the cold intent behind those black eyes. 2 weeks later, I lay in bed again, determined to confront the fear. I practiced breathing exercises until my chest rose and fell like a metronome. I repeated positive affirmations, reminding myself that I controlled my mind. As 3:13 a.m. approached, I steadied my focus, toes wiggling beneath the covers to anchor me. My body froze. The sheets tightened against my ankles as though invisible hands gripped my limbs. A hush fell over my senses. Then, from the corner of the room, emerged movement, a ripple of darkness that coalesced into the same gaunt silhouette. No face, just an ink-eye void where features should have been. I remembered the finger twitch. Concentrating on a single breath, I willed my lungs to expand. A shallow inhale. Then another. Encouraged, I forced my thumb to lift. It rose inch by inch until I could flex my wrist. The shadow recoiled, emitting that same hissing sigh. I rolled free, kicked off the blankets, and leapt to my feet, switching on the lamp with shaking hands. Light poured in, and for a moment I thought it was over. But then I noticed, etched into the white plaster wall, just above the headboard, were two dark smudges shaped like eyes. They stared back at me, accusing, unmoving. My blood ran cold. I rubbed at the marks, but they would not budge. By morning, the smudges had faded, leaving only the faintest grey stain. I tried to convince myself It was soot from the fireplace or residue from a passing car's exhaust. But every time dusk fell, I felt the weight return, subtle at first, a tingling behind my sternum, a whisper of movement at the foot of the bed. Night after night, I repeated the exercises. Toe twitches, deep breaths, self-talk. Each victory was short-lived. Each 3 a.m. return brought new horrors. The sensation of wet claws tracing my arms, disembodied laughter echoing in my skull, a low voice chanting words I could not understand. And always, those eyes, the void within them deeper than sleep, hungrier than fear. I learned to lie flat on my side, pillow pressed to my ear, as though that simple shift could keep the figure at bay. Some nights it worked. Others it drew closer, breathing slow and deliberate, so close I could feel its warmth on my skin. Last night, I awoke again at 2:59 a.m., as if on cue. The familiar paralysis pinned me instantly. I counted backward from 10, focusing on each number as though it were a lifeline. 10, 9, 8, a scratching sound at the closet door. 7, 6, 5, the room darkened until the street lamp's glow was snuffed out. 4, 3, 2, and then the eyes appeared on the ceiling, directly above me, floating like lanterns in a void. My vision tilted as the figure descended headfirst until its face hovered over mine, lips parting in a silent gasp. Terror lanced through me, and I summoned the last of my strength. I blinked rapidly, willed my toes to curl, willed my lips to part. My voice emerged as a strangled gasp. My toes flexed. My legs followed. I bolted upright, smacking the lamp off its stand. Shards of glass scattered across the floor. The figure dissolved in a swirl of smoke and ash, leaving behind only the failing hum of the bulb. I sank to the carpet, tears mingling with sweat, clutching my bleeding palm where the lamp had shattered. I lit a candle and sat in the trembling glow until dawn. Every shadow seemed to twitch, every creak of the house a promise of return. I will keep the candle lit tonight and the night after that. I will keep wiggling toes and blinking eyes. I will not give in. But as the first light of morning crept through the curtains, I noticed new marks on the wall. Not smudges this time, but scratches etched into the plaster, 2 long lines where talons had raked. Below them, scrawled in dust, were 3 letters, me, and I know what they mean. Something is tapping on the inside of my closet door, slow, deliberate, like someone drumming their fingernails on wood. I can't move. I can't scream. All I can do is lie here, eyes wide open, praying it won't come out. He'd pulled an all-nighter studying for his organic chemistry midterm. When his head finally hit the pillow, it felt like relief, until the world shifted and his body betrayed him. It started with the crushing weight across his chest, as if a 100-pound slab pressed into his lungs. He snapped awake, or so he thought, only to discover his mind was free while his body lay paralyzed under the covers. His dorm room was silent, except for the hum of the hallway vent. He tried to call out. His roommate, an introvert who rarely came back before dawn, might hear. But his throat locked, and the only sound was his own ragged heartbeat. Then came the tapping. Tap, tap, tap. He froze, breath stuttering. The sound came from the closet door, a thin slab of wood separating him from whatever waited inside. His eyes strained to see through the dark, but he could make out only the faintest outline of the frame. Each tap reverberated in his skull, echoing like a countdown. Tap, tap, tap. He tried to shift his gaze, but his neck refused to obey. The tapping stopped. For a moment, everything held its breath. Then the door creaked open, so slowly it might have been a dream. A pale hand, unnaturally long and narrow, slipped through the gap, fingertips brushing the metal handle. He felt bile rise in his throat. The hand pulled the door wider, inch by agonizing inch, until the rest of the arm emerged, followed by a figure hunched in the shadows. Broad shoulders thrust forward, arms that ended in pointed elbows, legs bent at awkward angles. Its face was veiled in darkness, but something about its posture screamed predation. He willed himself to move, but his limbs were dead. Panic surged as the creature stepped forward, each footfall silent despite its weight. It stopped at the edge of the carpet, a foot's breadth from his bed. His mind raced for a lifeline, any technique he'd read about. Wiggle a toe, blink fast, focus on breathing. He focused on breathing. In, two, three, out, two, three. The creature crouched, tilting its head as though examining a curious insect. A low hum, not quite sound, vibrated in his ears. Then a voice, distant and layered, slid into his mind. "You're mine. You can't hide." The words felt like ice water poured into his skull. He sensed its gaze probing his thoughts, dragging at memories with talons he could almost feel brushing against his soul. Desperate, he focused on a single, defiant wish, to wake. He willed his right eyelid to twitch. A muscle tensed. He blinked, once, twice. His eyelids fluttered like wings. The creature's head jerked, surprise etched into its posture. He seized the moment, summoning every ounce of will to roll his shoulder. He felt the sinew of muscle protest, but he moved. His shoulder cleared the bed's edge, and he swung his legs over, dropping feet to the floor. In that instant, the paralysis shattered like a glass pane. He bolted upright, gasping, and flung his hands toward the desk lamp. Light flooded the room, and the creature flinched as though burned. In the harsh glare, he saw it clearly for the first time. Skin the color of dank moss, eyes like polished obsidian, a mouth stretched too wide in a gaping maw. It scrambled back into the closet, its long limbs folding like origami. The door slammed shut, and the tapping resumed, rapid this time, as if it tried to break free. He didn't wait to see what happened next. He sprinted through the door, naked from the waist up, and pounded on his neighbors while still dripping sweat. When his roommate opened, bewildered at the intrusion, he sputtered, "Something's in my closet. Please, help." They returned together, flashlight and textbook in hand. The closet door stood closed, its paint unmarred. Inside, only clothes hung silently, a shoe box on the floor. No scratches, no footprints, no sign anything had emerged or retreated. His roommate shrugged, attributing it to hallucinations or the stress of exams. But he knew what he'd felt, the cold intelligence, the clicking breath, the promise in that mental whisper. Every night since, sleep had become a terror. He relocated to the common room couch. Daytime naps felt safer than the solitude of his own sheets. But 2 weeks later, exhaustion overwhelmed caution. He stumbled into bed in his own apartment, vowing to face whatever haunted him. At precisely 1:59 a.m., he drifted into that blurred state between dreams and waking. He awoke to the familiar anchor of paralysis. The closet door stood open this time, and the creature had ventured out, its silhouette stretched across the laminate floor. It watched him, head cocked, as though recognizing a familiar face. He tried the eyelid trick. Nothing. He tried to flex a toe. Nothing. The creature drifted closer, feet hovering rather than touching the ground. His chest tightened with each breath, the weight of its gaze crushing his will. Then, inexplicably, it smiled, slowly, cruelly. Its teeth, sharp and blackened, reflected the faint glow of his phone screen, left charging on the nightstand. The screen illuminated the writing on the back of the device, his name scrawled in block letters. Underneath, the date, today. Terror coiled in his gut. The creature bent down, its mouth level with his ear, and whispered in his mind, "Tonight's your last exam. Fail and you stay here forever." He gasped in horror. His organic chemistry final loomed in 8 hours. The realization hit him, this being fed on his fear, its strength tied to his terror of failure. He had let stress rule him, let panic grip him. He had given this creature power. Summoning every fragment of calm, he shut off the internal dialogue with a mental mantra. Not today. Not me. He pictured the exam hall, the professor's stern gaze, the comforting weight of pen in hand. He breathed in for 5 seconds, held for 5, exhaled for 5. He recited the formulae he had memorized. Benzene rings, reaction mechanisms, silent affirmations that grounded him in reality. His toes trembled, his foot twitched. The creature jolted back, surprised. His thigh flexed. The paralysis cracked. He rolled to his side, knees hitting the bed frame, and bolted upright. He slapped the lamp switch. In the bright light, the creature recoiled, retreating into the closet like smoke sucked into a funnel. The door slammed shut on its departure. He sat panting, sweat-drenched and shaking, the lamp's hum the only proof of normality. He spent the rest of the night at the desk, reviewing notes by desk lamp until the sky lightened. At dawn, he felt drained but victorious. He had faced the terror and reclaimed his body. He aced the exam with hours of focused study and a newfound calm in his chest, yet the memory lingers. Now, every time he opens a closet door, a shiver runs down his spine. Every creak, every shadow feels like watching eyes. He keeps a small bell by his bed. Its jingle can shatter the paralysis. He sleeps with the door wide open. And every night, as the clock ticks toward 2 a.m., he grips the bell, heart pounding, and waits. Because he knows, it's not the darkness you should fear. It's what waits quietly behind the closet door, tapping for your attention, waiting to remind you that your greatest enemy may be the fear you carry within.